Hey guys, my name is Gloria and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about a few review books that I got to review for my blog and what I thought of them. These are just the ones that I've read in the last couple of weeks or so. I have mentioned these in a previous video in my January wrap-up, I think, but I didn't really go into depth on them, so I'm going to talk a bit more about them today. The first one I have is All Hallows Eve by Michael Penning. Now he did contact me. He only wanted me to review the second book, which is called The Suicide Lake, but he said here's the first one anyway if you want to look at it, and I have no impulse control, so I had to read the first one first. I'm also a chronological weirdo, so I read both of them and I'm actually really glad that I did, because I really enjoyed both of them. I really enjoyed Michael's writing. It's great. It's very visual. He's got great pacing. He's got great twists and turns in his books that I really enjoy. So let's look at what these are about. So they are direct. The second one is a direct sequel. The first one is about a young woman called Alice, and she is bringing her young daughter Abigail to the town of Salem. This is about 100 years after the actual witch trials that were held there, and she's going there because her husband went there to do some historical research and he's been missing for the last 3 months, and she's been really unhappy with how the authorities are dealing with it, so she's just going to do her own search for him. Unfortunately, she gets there on All Hallows Eve, and she's getting there while the entire town are battening down their hatches, and they're doing this because there has been a legend in the town for a long time that a woman who was wrongfully killed and hung as a witch is coming back to enact revenge, and it is now the 100-year anniversary of that, and they've had bad things happen leading up to this. She said she would bring darkness on the town, and there was an entire night where no candle could be lit, which was basically taking their eyesight away from them. There was also an incident where all the newborns in the town would die. Most of them were animals that happened on this day, but there was one child that was born stillborn, and they all attribute it to this witch. And as she arrives in the town, the shoreline of the town is completely covered in human bones. There's just wave after wave of human bones coming up onto the beach, and everyone in the town is now officially losing their shit. So she has to try and get as much information as she can. She doesn't really believe in any of this. She's not a superstitious woman, but she starts to believe when her child goes missing and everyone tells her that the witch took her. So she has to, by herself, because everyone else in the town is afraid for their own children and their own lives, she has to try and figure out who this witch is, why she's doing this, if there's any way that she can get her child back. So that's the general idea of the story. This one was really intriguing. It sort of takes the Salem witch trials into it, but it isn't about them. So it's got that sort of witchy, superstitious tinge to it. It's got the town that are all turning on each other and judging each other. There is a great theme of just judging women and judging women's choices and just taking things completely the wrong way and attributing evil to people who are actually doing good, and of dark secrets that are mired in blood as well. So really enjoyed that one. The second book, slight spoiler alert, but not really. So the young girl, Alice's daughter Abigail, in the first book, she does survive. A lot of other people don't, but she does survive. And the second book, The Suicide Lake, is her as an adult. She is now a witch herself because of events that happened in her childhood. She is now a witch herself. She deals with spirits and helping people to get rid of evil things, and she is asked by an old friend to go to this logging town where he is working, where it's up in the mountains, completely isolated, and there have been a spate of horrific suicides, not your ordinary suicides. There was no indication that these men would commit suicide, and they all seem to have chosen the most violent ways to do it, intentionally standing in the way of trees so that they could fall on them, setting themselves on fire, just horrible things. And her friend believes that there's something supernatural going on in the town. The only issue is that it is very isolated, and most of the people in the town are Irish and Scottish immigrants. They are devout Catholics, and if they get any whiff that she is actually a witch and she's performing any kind of witchcraft, they are likely to hang her themselves, and there's no one around to stop them. So she has to go and pretend to be a teacher, which she has done as a day job. She has to do this while also performing different things, different spells, to try and figure out what is actually going on here. So following in the vein of the first book, it is full of witchcraft and magic and dark secrets. This one takes in a lot more Native American folklore and myths and legends and stuff. It's definitely got a different feel than the first one. The first one was set over just one night, and this is set over almost a week, I think, but it's still got a tight deadline on it, so there's definitely a good energetic pace to the story. I really liked Abigail, her character. She just doesn't take shit from anyone. She's quite a cold and calculating character, but all she wants to do is help people, but she's very reluctant to let anyone get close because she knows they could get hurt by what she's doing. So you definitely feel for her, and you definitely feel that she could also kick your ass, which she's likely to do. Both of these books I really enjoyed. I really like Michael Penning's writing, and I would definitely read something from him again. Next up is called They All Died Screaming by Christopher Triana. So this is a splatterpunk novel, and normally I'm not much of a splatterpunk person. I don't like a lot of gratuitous violence and sexual assault, and mainly just bodily fluids. I just don't like to read about bodily fluids being where they're not supposed to be. It just weirds me out. You get a lot of it in literary fiction as well, just people peeing on each other. Very weird. Not my thing. However, I did enjoy this book. So there are two main lines in this book, plot lines. So the first one is that you're following this downtrodden, self-professed pervert and alcoholic Chuck, and he's been living for a while off of money he got from his settlement of pretending he injured himself on a job, and he's just been drinking his days away and trying to sleep with as many women, as young women as possible. And he has some unsavory friends, he has some conspiracy theory friends, some drug dealing friends, some weird people, and he befriends a woman across the hall from him where he lives who has a lot of issues. She's very loudly kicking her boyfriend out when they meet, and she has a lot of psychological, emotional issues, and she tries to fill the void in her soul with sex and booze and food, all three at the same time, preferably. So he becomes friends with her. They both sort of start enabling each other. While this is going on, while they're getting to know each other, there are rumours that there is a virus spreading, and it's coming down from Canada, but it's quickly taking over America as well, and they're calling it the Scream. And what happens when you get the Scream, and they have no idea how it's transmitted either, is that you literally just start screaming and you can't do anything else, and it causes people to just immediately go insane and try and kill themselves just to get away from it. They're hearing about this. There's also news of ice caps melting, and there's rumours that the virus came from the ice caps melting, so it's all very relevant to today, unfortunately. But this is progressing, strange things are happening. We're getting to know these characters and their horrible habits and the horrible thoughts they're having inside of their heads. And one night when him and his friends are at the bar somebody starts screaming, and very quickly another person starts screaming, and it is evident that this virus is here, it's right beside them, they have no idea how it's transmitted, so they get out of there as quickly as possible. And of course the first thing they do in this situation is go to the liquor store. So they load up on liquor and they decide to barricade themselves into his girlfriend's house, or his girlfriend's apartment, to try and wait out whatever this is. Looking out the window they can see fires, electricity's going off, there are police sirens. There's no way they're going to get help. They're just fending for themselves right now, and they have to try and figure out how to get through this without catching it themselves, or without turning on each other. So the other plotline in this book begins with a young boy who is at a mall with his mother, and he gets separated from her, and unfortunately a man posing as mall security kidnaps him and takes him to his pig farm. So this man is doing quite well for himself in his business, but unfortunately he is not slaughtering and selling pork. He loves his pigs a little bit too much, and instead he sells veal, and veal for him are young, mostly teenage girls, and he keeps them in cages, treats them much like we treat factory farmed animals these days, and he sells it to the local townspeople, and he is quite famous for how good his meat is, unfortunately. And he wants this young boy to come to the farm to work with him, to basically be his son. And the young boy, after spending many years there, he's never found, he actually begins to believe this guy is his father, that he should be doing these things, that he starts to believe all of the things he's told about these veal and how terrible they are, and it's just a horrible downward spiral to watch. You feel bad for him in the beginning because he's so young, but then he begins to do the horrible things as well, and it's just a very horrible way to go. So those two plot lines do link up. There's obviously a lot of violence, a lot of sexual violence, a lot of sexual assault, and there's some sexual coercion in there as well. There's some really messed up viewpoints from some of the characters, but unfortunately it's not a surprise either. There's definitely a conversation to be had on how we treat animals. There's definitely conversation to be had on how we treat young girls and women as in society as a whole. All of the male characters in this book at some point are predators. As nice as they believe themselves to be in other situations, and as much as they think they get treated badly, they definitely act as predators who just barely children, just the younger the better, which unfortunately is a reflection of our society today. So there's definitely layers to this book. There's definitely some different viewpoints you can take in it. I thought it was really interesting. As someone who consumes a lot of true crime media, absolutely not surprised by the pig farm. I don't think you should believe a word that comes out of a pig farmer's mouth. There's always something sus about a pig farm and a guy running a pig farm. Don't trust them at all. But this, The Old Age Screaming, is a really good novel. Like I said, I'm not usually one for splatterpunk, but this one, I haven't read a lot of splatterpunk. I'm not painting it all with the same brush, but this wasn't just violence and assault for the sake of violence and assault, just for shock value. It definitely had some deeper layers to it as well, and the ending really did sort of have me pausing to digest it and to think about it, and it was a surprise to me as well, the ending. There was a twist there that I wasn't expecting. So if you're alright with a lot of violence and assault and stuff, you should definitely check that one out because it's quite good. And the last one for today is called Dream Reaper by Alistair Cross. So this one was also a really good novel for me. This one is set in a town and it begins with our main protagonist, Madison. And Madison, in the first few pages, there's a storm coming, it's already raining, but she decides to get in a roof to try and patch a hole in her roof. And of course she falls off into a pond and starts drowning, but a mysterious and beautiful stranger shows up who is naked, of course, and saves her life. Unfortunately, this stranger has amnesia and has absolutely no idea how he got there, who he is, or absolutely anything. So she has to try and figure out who he is. At the same time, there's another enigmatic stranger in town who has just bought a very old cathedral that has a dark past and a dark history to it, and he is just as beautiful, just as seductive, and there's something strange about him. He buys this cathedral, he turns it into a den of iniquities, into a nightclub where the whole town are invited to come and do whatever they want, and he has a whole dancing troupe of male and female dancers who try and seduce as many people as possible. The town starts to turn a little corrupt. There's weird things happening. People are becoming angrier, greedier, more lustful, and it all seems to do with this beautiful stranger who does not want to keep his pants on, and unfortunately he can't remember anything before he met Madison. So this is a really interesting one. It's really well written, it's really in depth as well. I felt like there was a whole universe almost behind this. There's a lot of talk of different historical characters in the town and different sort of satellite towns as well. I felt like there's either already more books to do with this, or there's going to be more books to do with this. I definitely think it could be expanded into other territories as well. It is an angels and demons book. I don't think that spoils anything in the book. There's a lot of beautiful people-like creatures who are seducing these ordinary people. There's some true love in there as well. There's some fantastical, miraculous things. There's some horrible, terrible things done to people. It does have quite a needful things vibe to it, as well as this guy Gregory Jones, who's bought this place and turned it into a nightclub. He figures out what people's dreams are, their dreams in life of being an astronaut or whatever, and he offers them a physical object that they've always wanted in place of that dream, and most people say yes, not realizing what it's doing. But once people let go of their dreams, they just become husks of themselves. So he's slowly corrupting this town in many ways and just watching the chaos unfold. I really liked it. I really liked the characters. I really liked how they all fit together. I really liked the town. I would absolutely definitely spend a lot more time with the characters in this book and the town and the landscape as well. So if you're looking for a bit of a raunchy, romantic-y kind of book. The romance isn't too heavy. I'm not hugely into romance myself. It's not too heavy. There's some spicy sauciness in there. There's some violence as well. But you should definitely check it out if that interests you. Those are the last few review books that I've read. So thank you for joining me. If you like what I'm doing here, you can like and subscribe down below, and I shall see you in the next video.